moderator, and this should be a very interesting virtual forum. So we do believe that we miss a little something with not having this in person, but there's an added advantage that we can, more people hopefully that could not drive to someplace to get there to see this, will be able to see it virtually, or even we're recording this so they could see it at a later date. So if you find out people that weren't able to attend today, they can see it tonight or anytime up to the election. For the audience that is watching, you don't have to worry about muting yourself. You're all on mute.
Jeannie, we haven't gone live yet. Do you want me to bring the audience in?
Oh, okay. I thought you were on. I'm sorry about that, because I saw it was past 4.
I thought you had to decide which candidate was going to speak first.
No, what I did, I took the liberty, because this is a rather strange one, is because you're in District A, D, and E, I took the liberty of tossing a coin for each of you. So for District A, I've got Crystal going first and then Sabrina second. And then District D, Richard and then Camille. And then in District E, LaWana and then Sharon. All right.
And then we'll alternate that on each question.
We will alternate, and we're even going to alternate. I made it very creative. So District A will not always go first. So I'm going to rotate the districts too. So I've got it all written down here. So I hope it'll make sense to all of you.
Okay, right. Are we ready to go live?
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay, just Jeannie, count to 3 because it takes me just a second to broadcast it, and then go ahead and begin speaking.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hello, my name is Jeannie Brown, and I'm with the League of Women Voters, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. I do believe that since we are in a virtual mode, there are some advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantages are that we can't all be in person and get that whole feel. But the advantages are that this will be taped, and that more people can attend now from their homes, and also they can watch it on tape later on if they find out about it. Audience members will all be muted. You will be able to send in questions via the chat. You don't have to mute your phone. I am muting my phone, and I put my dog out so she won't be disturbing us. And if each of you will mute yourselves when you're not talking, that'll help. So the League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting or opposing candidates or political parties. But we are looking for issues that are of vital concern to their communities, and certainly candidate forums are one of those. So the League is doing this all over the country, getting ready for November 3rd campaign. Our goal is for voters to learn more about your candidates, and we hope that in doing these candidate forums, people will become more informed voters. This forum is copyrighted by the League of Women Voters of San Diego for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this video without the consent of the League of Women Voters of San Diego is prohibited. It will be posted on our website, lwvsandiego.org. So we do have some questions that we have asked attendees to submit, and we're going to start with those. And for those of you that are sending in questions, please remember to use civility and respect in all those. We have question screeners who have organized the questions to avoid duplication and to assure the topics are of greatest interest. So those of you, who have been working with me tonight or today is Jane Andrews and Francesca Wiedemeyer have been our screeners, and Janelle Van Dusen is working on the timer. We hope to adjourn by 5:30. And with that said, I want to thank you all for joining in on this webinar to become a more informed voter. So let's begin. This is the forum for the office to be a member of the San Diego Unified School District Board of Education. It will be for districts A, D, and E. There are 2 candidates for each seat, but they are elected at large, so everyone will be voting for for one candidate for each of those 3 seats. And I'll introduce them that way. So for District A, we have Trull and Sabrina Bazo. For District D, we have Richard Barrera and Camille Harris. And in District E, we have LaWana Richmond and Sharon Whitehurst-Payne. And we'll be using the League of Women Voters format. And that format includes each candidate has a 2-minute opening statement, 2 minutes for their closing statement, and 1 minute for each question. And so prior to this event, I did flip a coin. And so I expect that to decide who's going to be first. And so now, if there, without anything else to say, I think let's go ahead and start. For the opening statements, let's begin with District A and Dr. Trull.
All right, well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this candidate forum. It's an honor to be here. My name is Trull, and I'm a candidate for San Diego Unified School Board of Trustees, District A, which represents Claremont, University City, and Mira Mesa. I'm running for school board because I know we can do better. I grew up in District A, a product of public schools, San Diego Unified Schools, and education is really one of my core values. You know, before the pandemic, we saw some learning gaps. We saw district-wide students were failing to meet grade level standards for math and English, nearly half. Now we're faced with some learning gaps created by the crisis learning in the spring for students, especially those who are foster youth, English language learners, and special ed. We're also faced with families potentially leaving the district to find other types of public education or schooling and relying on potentially these learning pods causing equity issues. And because of the pandemic, we have an opportunity like none other to really make some change. So what am I going to do about it? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to focus on the mission. The mission of San Diego Unified is to prepare students to succeed for tomorrow in their choice of college or career readiness. So focusing on the mission means using my background as a nonprofit practitioner consultant, where I can prioritize the public's money to be used to fulfill that mission and support student learning. My work in the nonprofit sector also allows me to really focus on accountability and transparency. I'm committed to communicating with the community and parents how decisions are made and why they're being made. I have an academic background, so I understand education. I'm a lecturer at UCSD and USD. I have a doctorate in leadership studies, so I can engage in strategy and planning and use data. My role as a parent, first and foremost, allows me to really understand the current issues that our district is facing, that our schools are facing, and working with other parents. So I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have 2 in middle school, 1 in elementary, San Diego Unified Schools, and I've experienced firsthand what the crisis learning has done, and I'm committed to making a difference for all students. All students need to be the priority, and ultimately I'm running to ensure that our district supports students first. So thank you for this time. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. And Sabrina Bazo? Are you unmuted?
I pulled a, yes, I am now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity. My name is Sabrina Bazo. I'm also running for school board in District A. I believe school board is probably, if not one of the most important elected jobs there is, and a very important role to undertake. And this is particularly true right now in the current situation that we're in. I'm an 18-year parent volunteer leader in the district, and I've served as PTA president at both my daughters. I have 2 daughters that graduated, the most recent in 2018. They're both in college now. But I started as PTA president 18 years ago at their grade school, was PTA president at the middle school, and followed that up by Mira Mesa High School Foundation president for 6 years, and that is the largest high school in the district. I'm also a board member on the Mira Mesa Town Council. So right now, as everyone knows, the biggest priority is getting the school year started and eventually getting our kids back to the classroom. And I believe I'm well suited for this role because I do have my master's degree in public health from San Diego State University. I have 25 years of experience as a health educator in the San Diego community, and I currently serve as executive director and San Diego and Riverside Academy of Family Physicians, which is also a nonprofit organization focused on providing health education programs for physicians, many of whom are on the front lines of this current pandemic. I also want to share that I'm very proud to report that in the primary, there were 3 of us. Now we're down to 2, but I was first place in the primary with 48% of the vote. Again, I'm very honored by that, and I'm looking forward to the runoff in November and looking forward to our discussion today. Thank you. Sabrina Bazo, San Diego Unified School Board, District A.
Thank you. Now we'll go to District D, and Richard, would you please go first?
Sure, thanks, Jeannie. You know, we've been living through this crisis for the past several months, and you tend to 24/7 be thinking about how do we manage our way through a crisis? How do we get our kids back on campus? How do we keep everybody safe while we're doing it? And of course, that has to be front of our minds right now. But I had a chance earlier today to go by Hoover High School in City Heights. And Hoover High School is a school that brings together students from all over the world, many first-generation students who are here in this country. And I'd encourage everybody to go and take a look at what's happening at Hoover High School, because the physical building, the rebuilding of that campus is so inspiring. We have a new performing arts center. We've got new classroom facilities, state-of-the-art career pathway facilities. And it actually just reinvigorates you and makes you so excited for what we're going to be able to do when we can bring our students back onto that campus. We're reminded of what public education means to so many of our families, what it meant to my family. I'm a first-generation American. And we know the public school system is the institution in our society that allows people, no matter the circumstances that they come into our schools, to emerge as leaders and contributors in our community. And so I think about when those students come back to Hoover High School, twice as many of those students will be graduating college ready than we saw a decade ago. Those students will have access to a broad curriculum that they didn't have access to 10 years ago. And we have laid the foundation as an entire community to move all of our students forward. And I can't wait to get our students back into that position.
Okay, thank you. All right, and next we have Camille Harris.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Camille Harris. I'm a native San Diego. I'm 3rd generation American here in the States. I went to San Diego Unified Schools and Sweetwater School District as well. I'm a graduate from Southwestern Community College. I'm a professor. I teach at part-time as an adjunct for Point Loma Nazarene University. I also went part-time as an adjunct for San Diego Community College District. My heart for this is to really, my philosophy of education is student-centric. So I'm a counselor by profession, educational counselor, and I also teach. So I come from a wholly different perspective, having been in the classroom, having worked in charter schools, having worked in the public school system, having worked in community college, having worked in higher ed. So I come with a different perspective, and from my general consensus is, for me being in this office, should I be elected, is leadership and accountability, career readiness, and school safety. We all want to have our children to be safe. We want to make sure they get the best possible education that they can have. And also to, going back to student-centric, also to not everybody wants to go to college. So we have the career technical education that's also available in our school district as well too. So I'm all about the student. I want the parents to be involved. So that's my heart for our students. And again, also too is to know that every student can succeed. And I believe that every child is born bright, and it's up to us as educators to pour into them and develop them to be the best that they can be. Thank you. Camille Harris.
Thank you. All right, now we'll be in District E, LaWana Richmond.
Hi, I'm Dr. LaWana Richmond, candidate for San Diego Unified School Board, trustee for District E. I am running for this position largely because of my connection and my empathy and compassion for the people in my community. I have a strong desire to address some of the problems that have been persistent, but have been highlighted and elevated during the pandemic. My priorities at this moment are, number one, to make sure that we navigate through and beyond the pandemic, not only to get the best results, but with grace and leveraging all the opportunities and innovations and lessons that we learn through this process to emerge on the other side of it even better than we were before. I hold degrees in business administration, information systems, and my doctorate is in educational leadership. For the last 15 years, I've worked at UC San Diego, where I've done everything from financial, accounting and reporting, business and financial system analysis and development. And currently, I'm doing organizational development, where I'm leading a cultural transformation and transportation services. And we've been actively engaged in the COVID response at UC San Diego with public health and safety at the forefront. I'm endorsed by Earl B. Gillen, Bar Association, East County Democratic Club, MLK Club, Genevieve Jones-Wright, Council Member Monica Montgomery, Progressive Friends of America, California, Run Women Run, and the list goes on. But most importantly, I am committed to actually leveraging my skills, experience, and training to help solve problems at the school district level. I'm not looking at this as what's after this. I'm really focused on where we are now and how to make sure that we go forward in a way that takes advantage of the inertia that has stopped based on everything else that's happened.
All right, thank you. And Sharon, Whitehurst-Payne?
Thank you. I'm Dr. Sharon Whitehurst-Payne, and Jeannie Brown is a teacher from Ruth High School many years ago, and I knew you then. Just getting that out on the table. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to share today. And I want to say that I'm thankful for being on the Board of Education during this time in particular. I've had 4.5 years of experience, and this is a time where we need experience to help us navigate through where we are. And I want to say that I know I bring that experience to the table. And it was rewarded by the constituents in this particular district, in District E, as well as citywide the last time. But I won by 10 points in the district, in my particular district. In addition to having 4.5 years of experience on the board, I have degrees from Duke University, both a bachelor and master's degrees in mathematics and in teaching, and also a PhD in administrative policy studies in education from UCLA with a cognate in business administration. And so I have the training, the degrees that way, and then on the other hand, I have experience. I bring with me the experience of classroom teaching at both the middle and the high school, and much observations in the elementary classroom. So I think I'm bringing experience and looking forward to us moving forward on our agenda that we put forward, and as you've seen rolled out in the press and so forth. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity to share with you and look forward to continuing to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you all. So now it's time for the questions, and each panelist will have, each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions. And we'll start with, what do you think is the most appropriate, safe reopening plan for the San Diego school system? And we're going to start with District D candidates, and Camille Harris will go first. Ms. Harris?
Well, I think from my perspective, the biggest concern is safety of the children and safety of our teachers and anybody else who has, whether counselors who would normally be on site at a school. So as far as that goes, it's just something I just think it's a very fluid situation right now. Still, we still don't know. So I know I've read a lot of things what San Diego Unified has been planning to do, and then they had to shift gears and stuff based on how the pandemic was going. So I think it's just contingent. I mean, I can't really say I would know right off the bat, but again, I would always take into consideration that of the students, the teachers, just the faculty, the families. I want to take that into consideration first before I make any kind of decision, should I be given the opportunity to participate in a rollout of plan for the district.
Okay, thank you. And Richard Barrera?
Sure, Jeannie. So, you know, in order to answer that question, we brought a team together. We asked Chancellor Khosla at UCSD to bring together a team of scientists, epidemiologists, public health experts to really dig in deep to what are the key factors that we need to consider. One, in terms of the spread of the virus, and two, what do we need to put in place on our campuses when we reopen? And I think there's clear consensus coming out of that panel that right now, San Diego County is in a red zone in terms of the spread of the virus. Hopefully soon we'll be in a yellow zone. But even when we get into a yellow zone, we've got to be very careful about the way we go about this. On campus, we need to make sure that everybody's wearing a mask. We need to make sure that our campuses are properly ventilated. And we need to do this in phases, starting with the most vulnerable students, younger students, and then building out rather than opening too quickly and setting ourselves back.
All right, and now I'll move to District E candidates. Sharon, would you go first? Sharon Whitehurst-Payne.
Okay, I think the number one priority is we must use science. I'm a believer in science to help us to open and not just politics. And safety has to be our number one priority. Safety for our students, for all of our students, and safety for our staff. We definitely do not want to open just because someone says to open. We want to have data behind us to indicate that we should do that. That's been our mantra throughout. And then I think that Richard nailed it for me. It has to be the neediest students. Just as we've said now, we're opening up maybe 50% at restaurants or 25%. If we have a small fraction of the group to return, it needs to be the neediest children. It needs to be the special education students, the English language learner students, the children who are suffering during this time, etc. We've got to do it the right way rather than just opening.
All right, thank you. And LaWana?
So for me, the question is really about reopening the schools. It didn't say in person. So school's going to be starting this semester very soon. So I think first and foremost is we make sure that as we engage in distance learning, that we're doing it in a way that is equitable and meets the needs of as many children as possible before we actually transition at whatever pace we transition to in-person learning. For me, I think that it's really important to leverage best practices and look at ways to create opportunities for students to engage in learning even while they're having to do it from a distance that gives them the minimum amount of learning loss or increases their opportunity to engage in effective learning. And of course, I believe in science. I work at UCSD and have been actively engaged in working with epidemiologists every day since this thing started to make sure that people are safe on my campus.
Okay, thank you. And now for District A, Sabrina, would you please go first?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Dr. Whitehurst-Payne was mentioning about making sure that we're looking at the factual data. I think it's important that we're also collaborating with county health officials. In my work as a public health educator working with the San Diego Academy of Family Physicians, several of the physicians are involved with county and public health. And so we have a great collaboration in addition to what Richard had mentioned, working with UCSD. There's several collaborations across the county already, which is wonderful. In fact, San Diego is ahead of the curve compared to many counties in terms of how well we're handling the virus. So I think that's wonderful. And so I think in looking at reopening the schools, I can't predict when that will happen, but it's going to have to involve data and working closely with our medical professionals to make sure that that's a safe process.
Thank you. And Crystal?
Yes, so I really like Dr. Richmond's point about, this on-site versus an online safe environment, what reopening means. And I've often thought that we need to be channeling and working on both tracks at the same time. What does a quality online framework really look like to keep our students engaged and making sure that the learning loss does not get exacerbated? And then on-site, what does that look like for a safe campus? I think that what's safe for one person may not be for another person. We have to be flexible. We have to come up with options. We have to allow school sites that have the space to potentially open with safety social distancing measures, masks and so forth, and sanitization, and all the things that we want to do to keep our students and teachers safe, but really work so that those students, especially those vulnerable students, have a safe place to come and learn. They don't have maybe a safe environment at home. So I think we need to be flexible for that. A one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't work for a district this large, so we need to be creative and flexible.
All right, thank you. So now I'm going to, for the second question, we're going to start with District E candidates first. And LaWana, you'll go first. What are the educational problems of distance learning, and how do you think the school board should address these?
There are the visible problems and the invisible problems. We have, for one, handing out devices to a student that doesn't have a wall with an electric socket that they can charge it on still leaves them absent the opportunity to engage in learning. We have students with a variety of special needs or IEPs that require different levels of support that are challenging to deliver over a computer screen. And then we have students who are trying to study in homes where they don't feel comfortable turning on the microphone or the camera for a variety of reasons, as well as quite often you have older students who are responsible for supervision and guidance of their younger siblings, and quite often end up in a space of neglecting their own studies while they're playing technical support for the younger kids. And those are just the tip of the iceberg, but really it's about looking at not just technical, but also non-technical solutions to this problem.
Okay, thank you. And also in District E, Sharon?
Thank you. Last week, I had the opportunity to listen to 6 groups of parents from the Mid-City Crawford cluster. And it was in different languages, in Karen, Somalia, Spanish, etc. 6 different groups that you normally don't hear from, Swahili, etc. And I was amazed that they had a uniform response. The problems, the difficulties that they mentioned, we distributed devices, so yes, that problem was taken care of, but it's dealing with idiosyncratic issues related to that, and then also dealing with the actual learning. So this time around, the district has an opportunity, which we're taking advantage of, to address those concerns that parents have shared with me in a systematic way. So we're looking forward to really addressing those concerns that have been shared with us.
All right, thank you. Now District A candidates, and Crystal, will you please go first? And the question again was, what are the educational problems of distance learning, and how do you think the school board should address those?
Sorry, I had my mute button. I got excited. So I have personal experience with online learning with my own students, my own children as students in the spring, as well as I have experience online teaching as an educator at the college level. So online learning requires real intentionality, real planning and strategy. You have to think about the whole process. It's not just throwing curriculum online for a website for somebody to go access. It really requires understanding what those learning outcomes are, what is expected, what is an online environment, what can students really do online versus, the asynchronously in live interaction, asynchronously on their own. So there's this real, it requires more thought. So the problems that happen is when there's no thought put into it and it's just haphazard. The other problems with distance learning is student capacity. Some students, they work better online, some do not. So again, it's really understanding the flexibility and being able to create a framework that works based on best practices and what we've seen working in other areas.
Thank you. And Sabrina?
So one of the things at the start of this pandemic that my campaign team wanted to do was to help out students that were really struggling. And my friend, who was actually a retired principal at the elementary school where my kids went, and she's helping out my campaign. And we came up with the idea to start a tutoring program. And we really wanted to target those students that were, needed the help the most. And so we reached out in Mira Mesa to elementary schools and the high school, and we recruited students to tutor, which was wonderful. There've been great kids. And then we also identified those students that were really struggling, and we worked with the parents, and the parents want that help. A lot of them just didn't know how to access it. So we launched this free tutoring program to help, and it's small right now, but we would love to grow that program so that more students in the district could benefit from that as well. So that's one thing we've done to help.
Okay, thank you. And now with District D, Richard.
So thank you, Jeannie. So our educators today ratified the agreement that the district and the teachers came to by 94%, which sets the highest standards for distance learning, for robust distance learning of any place in the state. And in fact, in the press conference this morning with Governor Newsom, the State Board of Education President, Dr. Linda Darlene Hammond, singled out San Diego Unified's approach. We're going to have much more live instructional time, but what we also have to continue to do is make sure that our students have access to the technology. We distributed 53,000 computers in the spring, and we're going to have to make sure that those devices are replaced when necessary. Access to internet and access to support. So when we identify students that have social emotional issues, we have to have teams of counselors, healthcare professionals that can get out and provide students with the support that they need.
All right, and Camille?
Jeannie, can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. Let's see, I switched questions. So what are the educational problems of distance learning, and how do you think the school board should address this?
Well, I know from my perspective, and Mr. Barrera and LaWana really accented what the need is here. And I know initially the big thing was access. Do all students have access to computers, and do they have support services at home? My thing too, I was concerned about special ed students. So access is one thing. That's the very beginning thing, have access, but also support services. But also too is not every student acclimates to distance learning. Student engagement is really important. So how do we support that too? So those are some of the things that I definitely look at as an educator. So it's just that, let's kind of wrap around services. How do we support these students so they be successful? Because we don't know how long we're going to be here. So what do we do to help make our students be successful?
All right, thank you. All right, now I'm going to, for the third question, we'll start with District A and Sabrina. And the question is, what is your opinion on whether there should be police in the schools?
So my answer to that is yes. I think it's an extreme to say we would defund the police force. I do, however, feel that there are a lot of places that we can utilize reform in the police, making it more of a community type safety officer rather than someone that students are going to see and be fearful of. I know when my daughters were both in grade school, they had the safety patrol they were involved with, and the school police then was more of a mentor, more of someone that, you know, they could talk to, having more of that kind of role for the school police rather than seeing them as punitive and, you know, that they're just going to be coming down on people. I think more looking at high school kids, working with them to get them into programs if they're having issues with drugs or behavioral issues, again, more than being seen as a, you know, aggressive type of figure.
All right, and Crystal?
Yes, so I support police and schools. And I think that where the issue is that we haven't really discovered how best to use their expertise. Oftentimes they're looked at as, you know, enforcing all of these rules and regulations or getting kids in trouble, but really they offer a lot of other things. I know for my school site, Holmes Elementary, I started a safety committee a couple of years ago because our biggest safety issue was pedestrian vehicle traffic, where it's a school stuck right in the middle of a neighborhood and there's 500 students in and out crossing the streets, and we had real issues. So we brought the police out to really give us some strategies and tools how to keep our parents and students safe. So I think the real issue is that we're not allowing the police to really offer the expertise to each campus, whatever that campus needs. And I think that's up to the community and the campus to really have these discussions with our enforcement support and say, you know what, we could really use you this way. Let's talk about working together on this so that we can really benefit from them.
All right, and District D, Camille, would you go first, please?
Definitely, I feel our schools need to continue to have school safety, but the one thing that I thought with everything that's happened in the world lately or across the United States is, you know, I don't believe in defunding the police. So my thing is, okay, how can we improve the situation? How can we, okay, a policeman who's going to be on an elementary school site or high school site is going to be very different. So their training needs to be appropriate for each type of grade level. So, and each student population has different issues and struggles. So we don't want them to think as a policeman as a big bad wolf. We want to make sure that these people are there to help them, but also to give the training to whoever it is who is monitoring and making sure our schools are safe, because that's the biggest thing. Our kids need to feel safe. It's a crazy world, and we need to make them feel safe. So what's it going to take, and who are we going to put there? We need to be very selective about that.
Okay, thank you. And Richard?
So we have formed a task force of students and adult administrators to come together and figure out how to reimagine both campus safety and the role of campus police, school police. We have to begin, though, by listening to what our students are saying. And when you have, for instance, a high school student that says, when I walk onto my campus and I feel that there's somebody who's looking at me as a criminal, we have to listen to that point. And we have to understand what young people experience every day in the community relationship and what, you know, armed officers tend to mean. Now, look, our school police does so much work preventing human trafficking, preventing school shootings, doing so much work behind the scenes. So what we need to do is come together and realize, here's the role that school police needs to play, but here's where we have to not allow students to feel like they are being criminalized on their own campuses. And I think we can come up with solutions that meet both of those needs.
Okay, thank you. All right, now in District E, let's see, Sharon, will you go first? Thank you.
For me, I believe that school police has a role, but not the role that they've been playing apparently. We have decreased the amount of monies that we've been putting in school police. And the last round of cuts, we said that we would not assign police to campuses to be there exclusively at that campus. They were given clusters. They're responsible for 200 schools. And so their roles were not to be woven in to do supervision on campus, to be engaged in the management of the school per se. So when the students said that, that took me by surprise a little, because that is not the role of the police. The police are there to deal with external factors. And internally, it's up to the staff, the principal, the counselors, all the folks who are hired on that campus otherwise, because police are hired centrally. And so their job is not to just be at a Morse High School, but to go to Pacific, to the Paradise Hills Elementary School. So internally, schools need to be implementing programs to deal with the issues on that campus and not have police there as a part of that process.
Thank you.
So I don't believe that we should have police as an integral part in that sense on the campuses, but they have other needs.
LaWana, will you please go? LaWana, I think you're muted.
I'd like to start with saying I really appreciate the student voices that were raised at the board workshop a few weeks ago. I appreciate that they had the opportunity to be heard. I've been aware for quite some time that there have been concerns about over-policing at some schools, or students who didn't feel safe either because of anticipated experiences or experiences they themselves had or had observed. I think that school police have a role, and I think the big work ahead right now is to reimagine what that role is and how to make sure that all the needs are being met, and that we look at building a community in schools where it is a shared responsibility and everyone feels safe, and not just certain students, but all students. And I really appreciate that question.
Thank you. And I apologize. I guess I had to have my phone turned off, not just muted. How, for the next question, we're going to start with District D and Richard. And it is, how will you address the issue of racial and economic justice in the San Diego school system?
So we brought together a workshop about a month ago where we looked at 4 big issues in terms of making our district an anti-racist institution. Number 1, the diversity of our staff. Our staff does not reflect our student population. Number 2, grading practices. How do grading practices contribute to institutional racism? Number 3, discipline. School police, but more broadly, suspensions and expulsions. How does that contribute to institutional racism on our campuses? And number 4, curriculum. What is it that students are learning? And we've made a deep commitment to expanding ethnic studies in our district. And so we need to move forward on all of those issues. And what we also did is we created an independent citizens oversight committee to hold the district accountable moving forward, so that we are making progress on these issues, and we don't just address these issues when they become something that's, you know, a large issue out in the larger community.
All right, and then Camille?
Repeat the question again for me, Jeannie.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
I want to make sure I get this right.
How will you address the issue of racial and economic justice in the San Diego school system?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to educate our students on this issue that's been going on for way too long. And so I believe that we need to teach the children, teach whatever school age it is, to understand what this means. And my biggest thing, I know I'm working with a couple of grad students right now on something that we need to remember to respect each other. And I think that's the one thing that's lost today. So it's to respect and to appreciate our differences. And I know, having grown up as a person of color, that, you know, I've come across certain things in my past. And so for me, it's very important if we can educate and help our students to learn now while they're young, that when they become adults and they're in the workforce, that they'll be better prepared and be able to treat people fairly. So I think we need to re-educate, provide programs, provide classes to help our students grow and to appreciate and to respect one another.
Okay, thank you. And now District E, LaWana.
I'd like to start by saying that I really applaud all of the things that have been mentioned before. And I think it's important to do all of that, but I don't know that that's enough. I applaud the efforts to support BIPOC students and staff and to diversify. But I also encourage internships and mentorship programs to support students who are social and economically disadvantaged, and to do more should the law permit it. But also, beyond that, I applaud the move towards multicultural and ethnic studies. But ideally, we would at some point reach an environment where education becomes decolonized and we're not centering any one voice, and students have an opportunity to get exposed to world history, world cultures, and understand from a very young age that they're not alone in this world, regardless of who they are and what their background is.
Thank you. All right, Sharon? Sharon, are you muted?
I support everything that Richard said about the policy that we passed about a month ago. And it goes without saying that staffing, we need to deal with that because it does demonstrate what our priorities are. Discipline, I think part of the problem that the students are feeling about the policing issue, we're focusing now on just the police, but I think it goes deeper than that, because a lot of times police wouldn't be involved in those issues if staff didn't recommend that police be involved. So we've got to deal with it on a multi-pronged front. And we've discovered that when we were dealing with expulsions. In terms of curriculum, we cannot just have ethnic studies. Our curriculum has to be permeated from day one when students walk on campus to know about equity, and that it's not a Eurocentric curriculum. It has to cover everyone's background.
All right, thank you. District A, and Crystal, will you please go first? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes, so I agree. I think that one of the first challenges San Diego Unified had was to just really acknowledge that this has been an issue. And I think that that was addressed, and I applaud that effort at the last board meeting for the plan in place. And I think it's good, it's a good start, but again, I don't think it's enough. I think I agree with Trustee Whitehurst-Payne. It needs to be at all levels. We need to be able to encourage teachers, white teachers, black teachers, teachers of color, to really incorporate this robust curriculum that does reflect all students, and it doesn't put one higher than the other. I think that it needs to be a core value at every level of San Diego Unified, from staff on campus to students to, to the teachers, to the district administrator, all the way up to the board. It really has to just permeate the entire structure in order for us to really see some gain and momentum in this. And I do think we need to do a lot more work in this area.
Okay, and Sabrina?
Yeah, I would echo as well the importance of the teacher pipeline, and not only having definitely more teachers of color being trained, and in doing so, we can bring some of those kids that were at those high schools back to those neighborhood schools by mentoring them with current teachers, providing education at a reduced rate for them, scholarships, things of that nature, to get more of those types of teachers in the pipeline, as well as also the ethnic studies curriculum that was mentioned, starting from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, so that kids aren't just learning about, white people in Europe, that they're learning about people, that have impacted our country and our world, basically, from all walks of life, all ethnicities and races. And that's being done, which is wonderful to have more ethnic studies curriculum. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I've got a quick question, and we'll start with District E. Do you support the Schools and Communities First ballot measure, Proposition 15? Yes or no? And we will start with Sharon. Are you muted, Sharon?
I'm always muting myself. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Do you support the Schools and Communities First ballot issue on the Proposition 15?
I believe that we should allow the people to respond to that.
Okay.
My position is to allow the people to respond.
All right. All right. And LaWana, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Then next would be District A, Sabrina. The Schools and Communities First.
Yes.
15. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely support the Schools and Communities First ballot initiative. I signed to get it on the ballot, and it's basically the split roll tax initiative that will allow, it won't bring up the property taxes for normal people, but if you're a corporation and you're making billions of dollars and you haven't had to pay your fair share of taxes, I believe that it's important that those individuals do have to pay their fair share, and that the public schools deserve to have that funding. And one of the reasons that we are in the situation that we are currently is because we don't have as much of that tax base, and it's, you know, placed our state in 12, I think we're in the bottom 12 in terms of per pupil spending. So, you know, it's not a good place to be, and I strongly support that initiative.
Thank you. And Crystal, yes or no?
So I typically do not support tax measures, tax increases, because I feel like, especially here in Southern California, cost of living is so expensive, and it ends up trickling down to the average person, whether the cost of goods start to increase, employment taxes start to increase. So while in theory it sounds good to have extra money and more money, I feel like we need to be good stewards of what we already have. We've had record funding up through last year, and I think that we need to be good stewards of the money that we've already been given.
All right, in District D, Camille? Camille?
I agree with what Crystal said. I think the premise for the bill is a really good idea in support of our communities. But again, I just think we need to be good stewards of how we're spending our money. So I'm kind of like in the middle right now. I probably have to do a little more investigation to see exactly how this whole thing, to read the entire bill to see what it is. But you know, in context, it sounds like a great idea. But again, you know, I know what happens. We already have such high taxes here in California. So I wouldn't want to add that burden that would trickle down eventually down to families. So I would say right now, I'm not sure. I can't really say one way or another.
All right, and Richard?
Yeah, let's be clear. What this initiative does is it identifies about 6% of large commercial property owners in the state who have been using their wealth and privilege for 42 years to deprive schools and communities of the services that we need. I cannot think of a clearer example of institutional racism than people with wealth and privilege and power manipulating the tax system so that we keep money away from schools and community services. This is not a tax on individuals. This is not a tax on homeowners. This is doing economic justice by requiring the largest commercial property owners in our state to pay their fair share. You cannot be an advocate for public schools and not support this measure. I'm sorry, it's as clear as that.
All right, thank you. All right, we will go on to the next question. Let's see, what is your philosophy regarding charter schools in our district? And I'm going to start with District A and Crystal.
Yeah, I was writing another question. So my philosophy on charter schools in the district, I feel that charter schools are very complementary to what the district is doing. And the district, Sandy Unified has several charter schools that are part of its district. And I think we can learn a lot from the charter schools. One thing I do like about charter schools is that they provide an alternative way of learning for students who have special kinds of learning needs, whether they're higher achievers or they need a little extra support, different learning styles. That's why charter schools really kind of fill that gap. And I do like the extra accountability measures that charter schools do have to uphold. Every 5 years, they have to uphold certain standards in order to renew their charter. So I think that's something we can learn from for our district schools as well.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina?
Yeah, I don't have issue with charter schools, but there has to be firm expectations in place for those charter schools. They should absolutely have the same expectations and standards as our regular schools. And in the past, the standards have been looser, and a lot of charter schools, their performance has not been good. So as long as they're maintaining the same performance or better, you know, than your neighborhood school, then I don't see a problem with them. I do, however, feel very strongly that we need to have a community school in every neighborhood. And, you know, if a lower performing charter school is taking students from a community school where they could have, you know, a wonderful education, then, you know, that concerns me. But as long as charter schools are being complimentary and have a good track record, there shouldn't be an issue with them.
Okay, thank you. Richard? This is in District D.
Yeah, so I believe over the last decade, we've struck the right balance in San Diego Unified of understanding that we've got a strong network of charter schools in place, many of which do a great job educating students. But when we have had charter schools that have failed students, we have held them accountable. And the new reforms, everything about transparency and accountability, to also making sure that we don't have charters just popping up and having negative impacts, as Sabrina talked about, on neighborhood schools, is also the right balance. But we have to recognize, and you know, Sabrina's point is really the right one, that we've got to invest in our neighborhood schools. We've got to connect our neighborhood schools to communities, and we've got to recognize that the school is really the center of communities for so many of our families. And so building our strategy around community schools has to be part of this overall conversation as well.
All right, and now Camille.
I don't have anything against charter schools. My son went to a charter school. I worked for a charter school here in San Diego. And so, but there again, like Sabrina was saying, we still need to hold these schools to the same, high standard, that to make sure that our kids who go there are getting what they need. And again, like Crystal was saying too, just to bounce off of what she said, they sometimes meet the different needs. Like I know, like High Tech High, my son went there for a period of time, and they teach project-based learning. And so I think they offer something that sometimes the public schools don't offer, but I'm all for improving our public schools and giving and having neighborhood schools. I think we need to have, it brings a nice competition between the schools. And so I just think a competition is good for everybody. So whatever is going to support our kids to help them be successful, bottom line, that's what needs to happen.
Okay, thank you. And in District E, LaWana?
So I support innovation and transformation in education, and understand that different children have different needs in terms of learning environments. What I support is actually, not only am I not anti-charter school, I'm not pro. I would like to see the district have more opportunities and space for identifying and leveraging best practices that have been exhibited, so that we can have infuse some of those into our neighborhood schools and better serve more students in a more effective way. I think sometimes when you learn from the so-called competition, and it makes you better. I think steel sharpens steel, and I want students, particularly disadvantaged students, to have every single opportunity available to them to succeed. But I also want the district to have access to all the resources that it needs in order to be able to innovate and serve all the students in all the neighborhoods.
Thank you. And Sharon?
I'd like to say, I think we've struck the right balance on charter schools in San Diego Unified. We believe in them, but we believe in our regular schools also, in our traditional schools. So I think as long as they have the same standards, and we hold them to those standards. But I need to go back and clarify my response to the previous question, because this has taken me back to Prop 13. And Jeannie, I'm sure you'll remember Prop 13, the draconian cuts that we had as a result of that. And I personally, my personal belief is I do not support us cutting schools like that. And I believe that we found that some of these folks have found a way, as Richard articulated, to actually take monies away from schools in a way that's criminal. And we need to bring back that money. So I personally support us bringing those resources back into our schools.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question because I think it's an important one. We want to try to finish at 5:30. So, and we will start with District A and Sabrina. And it's, how will you seek out feedback from parents and the community if you are elected?
So yeah, that is a very important question. I'm glad you included that. My experience in the past as being a PTA president at both the grade school and the middle school, and then high school foundation president, you know, I've tried for years to get parent input, get parents coming to meetings, getting their, you know, how they're feeling about issues. I think it's tough because, you know, all parents are busy, but I think an important thing now with having this virtual component is having a town hall meeting just like this. You could have for, you know, one for possibly like the staff, another one for parents, but having that communication and keeping that communication open, I think is very important, not just for, you know, us as school board members, but, you know, all school staff in general. But I think that's really the key is the communication issue and having parents feel like they have a voice and that they can share that with you and that you'll, you know, do something about it if they have a concern.
Okay, and then Crystal?
Yes, so parent and engagement and the community engagement is one of the key priorities of my campaign. I, as a parent, feel that that's significant to our children's success in school. So prior, when we were in the primary, one of my plans was to hold town halls. It was before the pandemic. And now I'm doing virtual coffees with Crystal to just talk about concerns that parents have. And parents are sharing all kinds of things. But I think it's just more than just hearing and listening. You actually have to do something about the feedback. You actually have to bring the feedback back to the parents and the community and say, this is what I heard. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. This is what we, you know, what can we do with what we know? So I think surveys are a great way. I think the virtual environment is huge. Many people now can access where they couldn't have been able to come because of childcare or work or whatever. So I think that there's a lot of ways to engage, but I think the key is to make sure that parents don't feel like they're engaging because the district is just checking off a box. Again, it goes back to core values. We have to make sure that this is a core value from the district, from the top all the way down to the school site.
Okay, thank you. And in District D, Camille?
Definitely, we need to keep the communication lines flowing between parents and staff and within the entire community. And so I know when I was working on a campus in Claremont as a counselor that one of my mentors at the time, she did a pre and post survey with the students and oftentimes with the parents and then with the staff to see what the basic needs were of each of her specific campus. And I thought that was a great idea to get ideas to what would you like to see to happen this year for your child. Get the parents' voices. Many times parents feel intimidated to come onto a school campus, especially those who do not speak or they're not English language learners. They feel intimidated to come. I mean, there's studies I've done. They feel intimidated to come on the campus. How do we welcome these parents to know that their voices matter? And so for me, in communication is just so important that we have that all the way around.
Okay, thank you. And Richard?
So every major accomplishment in our district over the last decade has been the product of the community coming together and demanding more and the district listening and following up. So when we made the UC A to G curriculum, the graduation standard, that was in response to a community effort. When we instituted restorative justice, that was in response to a community effort. Now that we're moving forward with ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, that's in a response to a community effort. And then when we think about things like, students at Crawford High School and Mann Middle School saying we want a halal food option in our school cafeteria, we delivered in response, to a community effort. So I agree. It's not just about going and having feedback sessions. It's about actually moving change based on what the community identifies as critical. And when we've listened and when we've done that, that's where we've seen great success in our district.
Okay, thank you. And in District E, let's see, Sharon?
I agree 100%. As I talked about last week, having gone to a Zoom session, 6 sessions with parents, that's not the first time I've done activities with them. I'm a regular visitor to those meetings, to meeting with the groups, and we've done it by elementary school where parents from each elementary school will come in during the cluster, bring information to us, we share, we take it back, we plan. The annual event on LCAP, the funding issue, we've gone through this with the cluster, we take it to small groups, we bring it to the large group, then we take it back to the district. We have accountability timelines, etc. It's an ongoing, continuous flow of information from parents through the board member to the district staff, back and forth to accomplish things.
All right, and LaWana.
So I would say, first of all, I already do a 1-hour chat every Tuesday live on Google Meet in order to give people an opportunity to speak with me and ask any questions and share their concerns. But beyond that, I believe in leveraging multiple mediums. I believe strongly in meeting parents where they are, understanding that people have different schedules, and perhaps going to community centers, finding meetings that parents are already engaged in, working with local community grassroots organizations. But also I would advocate for how we can better leverage technology to receive and access non-agenda and agenda-related public comment during board meetings, as well as to receive feedback or feed forward prior to meetings. I believe strongly in community engagement, and I would leverage my 30 years of experience doing so with local nonprofit and grassroots organizations to do the same.
Thank you. And now we're going to, before we go to the closing remarks, I want to thank everyone who's been listening in on this and for asking such good questions. Be sure to look at Voters Edge, which is an online resource put on by the League of Women Voters that has information about candidates, and hopefully all of you candidates have put your information there. It's a free resource for candidates. Make sure, and there's also information both pro and con on all the propositions that will be on this ballot. So, and also make sure everyone is registered to vote and that your address is correct, because you'll be getting a mail-in ballot. You can go to sdvote.com to find that out. Be sure, I hope everyone listening has filled in their census. If you haven't, go to my2020census.gov and fill that in. Our district needs those monies. And please attend all League events where we try to provide information that is important for our communities. And so for the closing remarks, I want to, let's see, we will start. We're going to go in reverse order. And so in District E, Sharon, would you please start?
And again, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share with the League and with the community through the League for the school board. We all know that this is a critical time in our society and in our nation. And as such, we need to have people on the board who know what they're doing, who are experienced in an area so that we can move the agenda forward. I've been on this board 4.5 years, and when I first came on, I started working for Crawford High School to bring back communities' issues and concerns to the larger community so that those needs could be met. And we have them now leading the forefront in the kind of model that they're doing for the district. I've also brought attention to the issues at Lincoln High School and ways that we can solve problems there so that we don't have a continuous flow of negative energy coming from that particular school. And I am proud that we were able to get someone on board who has moved the agenda forward. Now, when we come to the pandemic, we recognized immediately that we needed to look at all of the concerns and to pivot it so that we started looking at the children who are in need first rather than looking at the children who already had. And that's why we were able to get food out to children. We were able to bring in devices, technology, and skills to those students to help them to move forward. We're doing ongoing monitoring. We're looking forward to taking the agenda forward. And I am really thankful for being on this board. I really encourage you to look at the issues and to vote for me on November 3rd of this year to continue representing District E for the San Diego Unified School District. Thank you for this opportunity. And wish you well.
Okay, thank you. And LaWana?
Thank you for hosting this forum. I'd like to start by saying we live in a moment when adversity and the opportunity it presents beckons us to all rise above ourselves. I'm committed to serving the parents who seek guidance, the teachers and staff who need support, and the children who depend on us. I spent time in the foster care system and group homes, became a teen mom and single parent, found my way into community college, eventually transferring to and graduating from San Diego State University with a bachelor's in business administration, followed by a master's in information systems from National University, and finally earning a doctorate in educational leadership from UC San Diego and Cal State San Marcos. I have 15 years of experience in financial business systems planning and analysis and development. And now I serve as an organizational development manager at UC San Diego. I am trained and certified by various operational excellence and change management programs, and I am a certified project management professional. All the while, I've worked and raised children who have also been educated in the San Diego Unified Schools. I know firsthand the hope offered and the successes realized through our educational systems and the issues and challenges that need to be addressed and remedied. I am your partner in the solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, now District D, and Camille, will you please go first?
I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to be able to talk before you all. I'm an experienced educator. I've been a counselor in charter schools and city schools. I've been a single mom for many, many years, and I'm a native San Diegan. I have a master's in educational counseling. I have a doctorate in educational leadership. I've worked in the business world here in San Diego for a bank here in San Diego. I've also worked in tech. I worked for Intel, and I also worked for in the medical office. So I've done many things prior to me going back to school and getting my education. And I just want to encourage, I wanted to encourage students to have a love of learning, to get them excited and know that every child has an opportunity to learn. I call myself an advocate because I'm definitely an advocate for students and for families, especially me being as a single mom and having to raise my son and get him to go to school every day. It wasn't easy. But also, to having said that my experience as a counselor, being in the schools, being in the classroom with the teachers, that I see what they have to deal with. Classroom management is so important for our teachers. So I just want to express my heartfelt desire to serve the parents and the families of my community here in District D, but also to know that I would be an advocate for their children and for the families. And although I haven't been a school board member, I have been an educator for a long time and also a business person. So I'm here for the students, and I hope you'll vote for me on November 3rd. District D, Dr. Camille Harris. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Richard?
Yeah, so I come back to, Hoover High School, right in the heart of City Heights. And every year there's a ceremony where students who come into the system and are classified as English learners achieve proficiency in English. And there's a ceremony where they speak to their parents and they speak to their families and communities about what this process has meant to them. And particularly at a school like Hoover and City Heights, you have students who have come from all over the world and come from some of the most incredible, challenging, and in some cases horrifying situations to be here in our community right now. And these students are undaunted. These students are ready to go and not just graduate from high school and not just go to college, but to be contributors and leaders, and they want to come back and they want to make their communities better. And as an entire San Diego community, what we've been able to do for a decade is rally behind those students. That's why we've created the school facilities that those students deserve. It's why we've created the educational options that allow those students to achieve record graduation rates and move forward and be contributors in their lives. And we have to also recognize that for, again, 40 years, for an entire generation, we've had a small group of people who don't want to pay their fair share in taxes, who have tried to convince us all that schools don't need resources, and frankly, we'd be better off if we just privatize the whole system, and have attacked teachers and have attacked the education system, saying it's a failure. The public school system is anything but a failure. We've got heroes in the public school system that, as we rally behind and support, create opportunities for the students like the ones at Hoover. And if we continue to do that and come out of this moment more committed than ever to believing in our public school systems, our society will be better off for generations to come.
Thank you. And let's see, in District A, Sabrina.
Oops. Yes. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity as well. It's been wonderful to be here with all of you, and it's been a wonderful discussion. Both of my parents were public school teachers, and I was raised in a very racially and ethnically diverse neighborhood just outside of Chicago, because they felt it was important that that we are raised in a community where you meet people from all walks of life, as Richard mentioned, and that's always been with me and always been so important to me. And that's one of the reasons we chose Mira Mesa, because it was such an ethnically and racially diverse part of San Diego. And I'm very proud of that. And I have gone to public school all the way through to my master's degree. And now 25 years later as a public health educator. And I also have worked in the schools for the last 18 years as a parent volunteer leader. So I have a strong record of accomplishments, both in my professional career and as a volunteer. At the school level, I'm actually the only candidate in this race that has experience working as a volunteer at the elementary, middle school, and high school level as a parent volunteer leader. And as we know, those are all very different places. At PTA and at the foundation level at the high school, we fought to avoid teacher layoffs by actually raising money to support some of our teachers. I was also on SSC and SGT committees, K through 12, and we looked at determining budgets. I also participated in principal hiring committees as well as site modernization committees. So I think with all of that experience, I'm ready to take that next step to move from our cluster schools to working at the district level. And I hope you'll support me in November, and thank you.
Thank you. And Crystal.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. It's been great. There's so much I want to say, but I only have 2 minutes. And I think that right now we're facing a lot of challenges, but we also have a lot of opportunity. Education and children are at the forefront of everybody's minds. Facebook feeds, news articles, everyday conversation. We have this opportunity to elevate children and education like none other. So we really have to be creative in how we're going to approach this. So, I know governance. Governance is my area of expertise. I research it, I teach it, I live it. I've served on multiple nonprofit boards. Every board I come to, even my PTA service, my SSC service, my SGT service at both the elementary and middle school, I bring governance. What does it mean to be a trustee? You're responsible for taxpayer money. You're responsible to connect the community, to work with the community, involve the community. You're responsible for oversight. You're responsible to be accessible. These are the things that a trustee is really supposed to deliver on. And I know that I can do that based on my experience in the nonprofit community for more than 20 years, living this and breathing this. My educator background, I have a doctorate degree in leadership studies. I teach at the university level. I know education. I understand what it means to develop learning outcomes, to really assess and prioritize and develop that. I know what it means to work with budgets. I've been a nonprofit professional. I've raised millions of dollars. I know what that means. But more than anything, I bring a sense of service. I want to serve my community. And what it means to be a trustee is to really be a public servant. I'm almost native San Diego. I've been here since 1976. And I have a vested interest to make sure that the future leaders of my community are equipped to make the decisions on my behalf. And it all starts in the public schools. I'm a huge supporter of public schools. I benefited from public schools. They were my safe place. Schools were the place that I went to learn and to grow. And I will always value and treasure that. And I want the same experience for my kids and for their friends and for future generations. So I hope I can count on your support come November. And I appreciate this time. Again, my name is Crystal Trull, and I'm candidate for San Diego School Board of Trustees, District A.
And thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of San Diego, I want to thank all the candidates for running for office. I know it's not an easy thing to do, and for attending our forum today. And thank all the audience that you're here today and following our motto, don't be just a voter, be an informed voter. So let's hope you all vote on November 3rd and encourage others to vote as well. And thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.